Welcome to NinjaCast, a photography podcast powered by Studio Ninja, the world's highest rated business management app, built specifically for photographers. Listen and learn as the most successful photographers on the planet share their knowledge to help you transform every element of your photography business. Here's your host, Sally Shaw.
Hi guys, welcome to NinjaCast. Today I'm joined by Sarah Winterflood. Sarah's going to be covering all sorts with us today, from discovering a woman's superpower to how to step into that growth mindset confidently. Let's get started. Hi Sarah, how are you?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. This is exciting.
It's a pleasure. I'm really excited for this one actually. The listeners are going to get so much out of this, so that'll be great. So Sarah, for our listeners that might not have heard about you, don't know what you do, can you give us a little bit of a backstory, kind of take us back about your journey in the industry so far?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think like a lot of people, I've always enjoyed taking photographs. And ever since I was little, I've had cameras, tiny little plastic things, and I've always taken photographs. And it was just something that I could, I suppose, channel my creativity. And it was interesting because it was never something that I thought I could do as a job or as a career. And in fact, where I wanted to go was in performance. So I loved being on stage, and I went to drama school to study as an actress, actor. And that was my true passion, is what I wanted to do, was to be on stage. And I did do that. I worked for a while. I did work on the London Fringe. But what was interesting was that it kind of never really paid. Mm-hmm. So it was very hard to keep doing that. So I was always temping and doing normal jobs. Mm-hmm. But so when at the end of my 20s, something interesting happened, which was I had a change of direction. I went off and did a ski season. I sort of had this moment of like, I didn't really have any responsibilities. I wasn't really doing anything very solid. So I took this opportunity and I took my camera with me, and I was just taking photographs of everything around me, the events and people and the landscapes. And from there, somebody asked me if they'd seen my photographs, and they were asked if I'd be happy to have some of those published in a ski guidebook. And I was like, oh, yeah, I was really flattered. And I thought that's interesting. And from there, I got some commissions to do some event photography. When I came back home to London, I got some event photography commissions and also some corporate portraiture and stuff like that. But what was brilliant was that it was paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, okay, there's something here that maybe I could pursue my passion, my creativity, and I get paid for it. That's a win-win as far as I was concerned.
Sure.
And so what I did do, though, as a lifelong learner, I wanted to just boost my confidence. And so I went back to college and I did a year's course at the University of the Arts in London. And it was a one-year photography course. And it was really great. And I met some amazing people. And I really enjoyed that. And then when I left there, I got work as a freelance photographer. And I worked in a studio with a lot of amazing, talented people. So it's all been a bit convoluted. I've sort of followed a creative path, and I just feel like the photography kind of happened. I never really pursued it, but it was just, maybe it happened at the right time, but I'm really thankful for it. So, and I love it.
And go kind of full circle to kind of where you are now, you're coaching, right?
Yeah, that's right. So yes, it was definitely full circle. Mm. So after I was working in my in the studio and things like that, I then got married and had kids, and we moved out of London. And what was interesting about that was that I was trying to do it all, and so be a full-time mum, but also still trying to work. And I found that the juggle was really hard. I found it really difficult to do that, mainly because my brain just couldn't compute. It was kind of a bit shot to pieces. Yeah. And so keeping that focus was difficult. But I tried, and I was getting some commissions and stuff out here. But what was interesting was that I think about 3 years ago, I just felt really stuck, and I felt like I was at the point of going, I need to just park my photography. It felt really sad, but I was thinking this probably isn't viable anymore. I probably need to get a full-time normal job. And I was listening to a mindset call from a coach, and I was hanging up the laundry. It was quite a pivotal moment. I was hanging up the laundry and I was just looking at the wall and I was just saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And this coach was talking about mindset and niche. And I was like, well, I have no niche. I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't really see anything growing. I'm just being a mum at the moment. But what was interesting was I needed to hear more from her, because she did something that she sort of sparked something in me that I needed to find out more. So she's a mindset and I guess empowerment coach, and I discovered her. And actually I've been working with her for about 2.5 years. So it's been amazing. And what transpired from doing the sort of self-development, personal growth work with her is that I felt very comfortable in that kind of coaching environment, and it seemed to suit me very well. I think as a photographer, I've always enjoyed people's stories, and collaborating with your clients is really important, and hearing them and their story. And often people don't like having their photographs taken, so I want to know how I can make them feel as comfortable as possible. So it felt very natural for me to then think maybe coaching is something that would really complement everything that I'm doing. And funnily enough, my coach had a coaching accreditation course, so it felt like, again, things had sort of happened for a reason, and the timing was all correct. And it just sort of happened with real ease and flow that I joined the coaching course, and I'm very proud to say that I got my accreditation at the end of last year.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And what's lovely about that is I can combine it with my photography work. So it's just, they go hand in hand for me. It's really nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned briefly there on mindset a little bit. It's something that we've kind of touched on briefly on NinjaCast before. I think that mindset is something that is becoming much more of a talked about topic, isn't it? It's something that people are much more aware of in themselves and in other people, but also in their businesses as a business owner. So, I mean, how can photographers adopt more of that growth mindset, where they're not stuck, they're not static, they're open to change, they're open to going with the flow? How? Because I mean, for me, I can totally see why, as a business owner, you could just, this is what I'm doing, this is how I need to do it, this is what my life is. And actually, you kind of need to come away from that, right?
Yeah, because it's not static, it's not linear. Life doesn't work like that. We're always, we have to keep growing. Surely that's what we are as humans. It doesn't stop when you leave school. And so with your photography business, that it's ever changing. Technology is ever changing. There's new apps, there's all sorts of things. So we're always constantly learning. But I think we forget that we're growing in ourselves as well. So we're having all of this stuff put upon us that we've got to learn, but that doesn't mean that we're not learning or changing the way that we view things. So I think with going from a fixed mindset, that the things that show up where you may well be in a sort of fixed mindset is things like you could give up quite easily. You feel defensive if you get constructive criticism. You don't want to be collaborative. You don't want to embrace new things that might be suggested. Making the effort seems like, what's the point? So it's generally in the negative. And so to go into the growth mindset, if we start to think about why, a really good thing actually is just language that we say to ourselves and how we talk about ourselves. If we flip it from the negative to the positive, like a lot of photographers are afraid of using flash. And so often they might go, I'm just rubbish at using flash. And that's already, you've limited yourself just by using that language. But if you flip it and say, well, I don't feel confident using flash, then you're open to learning. And you can say, but I can find out and I can test and I can play around with it. So I think it's opening our minds. So the growth mindset is just having an open mindset. And trying different things out. So for me, what don't I feel comfortable doing? I have to say weddings is not my thing. It's just not where I feel 100% comfortable, but I have done some small weddings, but I would still be willing to try it out, and I've done it. And I think from trying things out, then you can start to figure out what it is that really floats your boat and go, okay, I don't need to waste, it's not wasting time, but it's more energy of like, you don't put your eggs in, oh, I'm not very good at those things actually, put all your eggs in one basket. I think that's the one, isn't it?
That's the one.
So don't put your eggs all in one basket, which is basically saying don't do all photography, because you're spreading yourself too thin there. And so if you try things out and it doesn't feel good, you don't have to do it. There's no hard and fast rule to say that you've got to be working within every area of it. And I think also people can get very easily intimidated by tech and by also, I don't know, like people that are amazing, we can look up to them and we can say, well, I'm not as good as you, but how did they get there? They got there through practice and being consistent. Consistency is king. And I, from my own personal experience, when I was having that pivotal moment of hanging up the washing, going, I need to put away my photography, it's because I hadn't been consistent with it. I sort of let it go and I'd lost the joy of it. And fast forward like 2.5 years, I've found what it is that sparks joy for me with doing my photography, and that is to work with women and to make them feel really confident having their photo taken. And that's all I want to focus on now. And so now I can put my energy into that. I don't have to exert my energy in anything else, but I can now talk to people that have worked with other women, and I can sort of get information, I can find collaborators, and I can share, and I can ask for help, which is really important. Like when we're in a fixed mindset, we can often get stuck because we're scared, and that fear will hold you back because it's protecting you. But what it's also doing is holding you back from finding and revealing your true potential.
Definitely. You touched on something there, actually, I'd just like to explore a little bit more, Sarah. So I mean, that feeling of kind of, looking up to other people and thinking, oh, I could never be as good as they are, or how did they get there? How are they earning 6 figures? How are they booking 50 weddings a year? How are they always fully booked for portrait shoots? There's always that element of I couldn't do that, isn't there, in our business? And I guess a bit of imposter syndrome going on. We all, I'm sure everybody in not even just our industry, but as a business owner has felt that. So what are your tips? How can photographers step away from that? How can they embrace their own power and push forward with their own business without comparing themselves to others?
Well, don't they say comparison is the thief of joy?
They do.
So the first thing to do is perhaps try and resist comparing. It's hard to do it because it can become a habit, and it's a sort of default setting that we can get into. So if a good way is to stop following people that you feel you're not worthy of achieving the same success as them. And you could give yourself a little detox to say, okay, I'm not going to get involved, or I'm not going to go and view what those people that I put on a pedestal are doing, because it just makes me feel rubbish. So we've got to think about ourselves, and self-care, even though that feels like quite a sort of bandied around term now, it's really important. So we've got to look into ourselves, and we've got to be kind to ourselves, because anyone can do it. So it's self-belief. And one thing that's really important with imposter syndrome is it gets loud and it can take over everything. And so what we need to do is try and get it really quiet and then pop it in a box, and it doesn't need to come out anymore. And it's almost like negative thoughts is the thing that feeds that imposter syndrome. So like I've talked about before, it's negative language. If we can be mindful of the way that we talk about ourselves and also talk about others, if we're mindful of that, let's change it. If it's negative, change it to the positive. It's a really simple thing to do, but it really helps. And then self-care is really key. And a good way to start that is by writing out a gratitude list. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it really is quite effective and powerful. And there's loads of apps out there that you can use, or you could just have a nice excuse to go and buy a nice new notebook, nice pen.
Love stationery.
I don't know about you. Exactly. I love it too. I love an excuse to do that. And you can just start by, gratitude is the key to it all, really. When we can start being grateful for things, then we can start to see the world in a positive light. And at home where we are, and it's small changes as well. And so, for example, if I was to be grateful about something right now, if there was 3 things, I'd be grateful for this opportunity to talk to you. I'm grateful that my Wi-Fi at the moment is still working. And I'm grateful that it's sunny today and it's not raining, because that makes me happy. So already what that does is that changes my state, and I feel a bit more happy, I feel more empowered, and I feel more able to look outward as opposed to inward. And my coach always says that gratitude is the game changer, and it is very true. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, literally just 3 things that you could think of that you're grateful for. And often when I talk to people about that, they're like, I don't know where to start, because we think too big. So bring it small, make it small. It could be your cup of tea in the morning, it could be a cuddle from your nearest and dearest, really small things, smelling the flowers, the scent from a flower. But I'm just, have I gone off key there? Have I lost track?
Not at all. No, bang on, absolutely bang on. So I think, I mean, really, it's all about kind of bringing it back to yourself, isn't it? You know, being grateful and being happy about things, and recognizing things in your own day-to-day life that you're grateful for.
It really is. And I think what you were saying about how if we're comparing ourselves to those people that are doing amazing work, how helpful is that to you? You know, you can ask your question to yourself is, okay, so if you're asking all of those things, how's it working out for your business? Because most often or not, when we're comparing and we're doing judgment about other things, we don't have any control over that. That is out of our control. So the only thing we can control is our actions and what we do. And so we need to stop comparing ourselves, do a detox where you're not getting involved in viewing other people's rise of success. And let's not forget that everybody's journey will be having it will be peaks and troughs. And we don't see behind the scenes of the work that they're putting into it, and the hardships that they may be facing, and all sorts of things. We only see the lovely, beautiful results of all that hard work. So that again is where self-care comes into it. We have to be kind to ourselves, and it will happen. Consistency is really important, being kind to yourself, and just doing it at your pace. We all work at a different pace.
Absolutely. That's really,
and I know that. Sorry, but I was just going to add that my pace has been like a snail, but I'm grateful for the journey that I've been on, because without all the experiences that I've had, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess that goes for life in general, doesn't it? You know, people say, do you regret anything? Do you, is there anything that you wish you'd never done? But actually everything that you've done brings you to where you are today.
100%. Absolutely.
Love that. Now, this next question I've got for you, Sarah, is quite an interesting one, I think. And I'm really intrigued by it. So you believe that women have their very own superpower. So tell us a little bit more about that. How can other female business owners kind of hear what you're saying, harness their power, move forward from listening to today's podcast, feeling like they've recognized that power as well?
Yeah. Okay. So the female superpower is the female cycle. And it's powerful. And I didn't know this until I attended a masterclass that was all about the female cycle. Because the female cycle is something that we don't talk about. It's still pretty taboo. I mean, it's getting a lot easier to talk about it, but it's definitely something that's been hidden and that we don't really discuss it, and it's not a positive. But since I went on a masterclass, I'm just all about it. I love it. I'm like, how have I only just learned this when I'm probably coming towards the end of it with my age? And I'm a bit annoyed, to be honest. If we can embrace this, then we are really empowered. The female cycle is awesome. So what I've done is, when I went on this masterclass, I then was like, I need to learn more about it. So I just read books about it, and I've absorbed as much as I can. And essentially what's happened is that we women, we run on a 29 day cycle, but what we run on in society is a 24-hour cycle. And that is coming from a sort of male, like the patriarchy, and that's where it's coming from, the 24-hour cycle. And And what's interesting is that if we can harness how our bodies work, we're then really empowered to be able to know when we can find the pivotal times to do the work that we need to do. So for instance, and even if you don't have a female cycle, we can use the lunar cycle to coincide with that as well. So it is available to all.
Yeah.
And there's a term called biohacking. So if you start to become mindful of how you are as the lunar cycle is working, or how your cycle is going, if you can jot down how you're feeling, maybe your moods, you can get really into it, and you can take your temperature every morning, and you can start to collect data and see how your body is reacting and how it's changing with hormones that fluctuate and things like that. And as you get through your cycle, and you sort of see maybe after 3 or 4 months, there will be specific times when you feel really on it, and you're like, boom, I am super creative right now. Just give it all to me, because I'm feeling like I want to do it all now. And then, a week later, you might just be like, give me the whole of the cupboard of chocolate. I don't want to speak to anybody, and I'm just really grumpy. Just go away. That's all part of your cycle, all of it. It's not just, the time when you're just feeling really horrible, crampy, and you just want to eat chocolate and everything's emotional. We need to harness it all, and we need to know that that's really powerful stuff. So it's called biohacking. And if you can start to listen to your body, there is certain times in your cycle, in the month, where you will feel really creative. There will be times when you want to collaborate and work with other people. There'll also be times when you don't want to work with anybody, and you're not feeling creative, and you just want some downtime. And so then you can start to figure out, how can I work within the cycle? Does that make sense?
It does. It's blown my mind, to be honest. That's amazing that something that I guess as us women, we just think that's just part of life. That's just what, that's the card we've been dealt. That's what we do every month.
Yeah, exactly.
But to think that you can weave that into how you work your business, crazy.
It is. It's really crazy. And I use it within my niche of working with women, in that we try and coordinate the shoot when they're actually at their peak of feeling really confident, because our bodies, when our hormones are leveling out, so that's like sort of, I don't know, maybe like 14 days within the start of your cycle, and everything's leveling out. It's when you're feeling really, your body is looking its best and it's feeling its best. You may not be feeling super confident in your mind, but if your body's already feeling great, then we can harness that to really use it for empowering confidence in front of the lens. So I use this within my work.
I can definitely see the kind of the thinking behind that, because you see a picture of yourself at that time of the month, or when you're not particularly feeling great about yourself in general, and you just go, ugh, no, don't like that, hate it, get it out of the way. And actually, if you're, I don't know, even down to something as simple as you're going for a night out, you've got dressed up, you've put your makeup on, you've got a nice outfit on, you're feeling great, you're looking forward to what's to come for the evening, you automatically feel better about yourself when you see the photo that you've just taken on your night out. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is. And it also is behind the scenes. Like, if you're not feeling great having a shoot because you're feeling bloated or you're just cranky, that will imprint on the experience of the shoot. And you're like, well, and then that's often why people don't really want to look at their photographs after. I just think it's so sad. And so therefore, let's avoid that disappointment for the client, and we can make it really exciting, happy, empowering experience. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I just don't feel like there's enough awareness of that. I certainly didn't have a clue. I was like, oh yeah, sometimes when I wear those clothes, I feel great in them. And then if I put them on, in a few weeks' time, I'll be like, oh, this is all horrible and life's rubbish. But actually, I just need to wait another week and I'll be fine.
So, I mean, Sarah, you've touched on it briefly in another kind of question, another chat that we had, but asking for help. It's something that I think business owners in general don't do. I know I certainly don't. And you try to take everything on yourself. You're spinning a million plates, and it's hard, right? Like it's so hard. So if your top tip for this question could be, how can our listeners reach out to others, ask for help, know that that's not their business failing? What's your advice on all of that?
Well, it's that simple. You ask, but often we feel really scared to ask because we're afraid of the judgment of others. But if we can stop, and so therefore it comes back to that thing of like, can we be kind to ourselves? Because when we judge others, we're actually judging ourselves. And so what is it that's making us scared to ask for that help? And so therefore we can go into the gratitude. Actually, everything's okay. And if you look around you, businesses that are successful, they are not single people businesses. No one can do it on their own. But we don't see everything behind the scenes. I think I was listening to somebody on the radio yesterday talking about a film that I can't remember, but it was okay, sorry, I'm just going off on one here, but it was Tony Hadley was being interviewed on the radio, and they were saying, how do you feel about this book that you've got out? He goes, oh, it's brilliant, and he listed all these people that had been part of making that book, but the only person that will be on the front of it will be him. And I was like, that's a really good point. No one does any of this stuff on their own. It takes a team. And so therefore I think I've had a sticking point there. I found it very difficult to ask for help. It's I think becoming a mother made it really hard for me to ask for help, because for some strange reason we seem to think we've got to do it all. And that carer mentality is just there of like, well, I've obviously got to look after everybody else before I look after myself. And so, and then what happens when you ask for help? People are willing to give you help and they want to support you. So we're not meant to do it all on our own. We're social creatures. As human beings, we're not meant to be doing the struggle on our own. And if we ask for help and we show that vulnerability, there's real strength in that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's even not even necessarily like you said, but in business, but in personal life too, when you've got children or, there's life's just getting on top of you. It's I guess, I mean, again, it's coming full circle. It's been much more spoken about in the world now, isn't it? But asking for help, and it's okay not to be okay, and all of that side of things is becoming much more known about now, isn't it, and much more spoken about. But I think relating it back to a business perspective, absolutely, you sit there often in an office at home or on your sofa or on your bed with your laptop, and you think, it's my business, I've got X, Y, and Z to do, and everything else from the previous week, and I've got to do all this. But I mean, outsourcing again is something I discovered a few years ago, and at the time I was like, I'm not sure about this, couldn't possibly give my editing to somebody else or give my blogging to somebody else or anything like that. And when I finally took the plunge, I was like, what have I been missing? Like, why was I so hung up on this? And even although that doesn't feel like asking for help as such, you're not saying to somebody, I can't do this, or I'm struggling with this. I think in a way in your head, you're still thinking, well, that's me passing the book and not doing it myself, which is the hard part, isn't it?
There is, definitely. And I have to say, when I got my VA, oh my God, it was the best thing I did. I was like, I don't like doing mailing, newsletters. I don't like any of that tech stuff. I find it really painful, and it takes up a lot of my energy, and it's not where I feel happy. And I thought, God, why didn't I do that sooner? 100%. It was the best thing I did, best investment. There was something that you said there, and it's gone out of my head, which is really bad.
Don't worry,
I wanted to pick up on it. Oh, that's annoying. Sorry.
Don't worry. Well, I'm sure we'll circle back. It'll come back to you at some point. I'm like that all the time. So, I mean, Sarah,
no, that's it. I've got it.
Go on.
It's come back. Sorry. It was that asking for help. Often we don't ask for help because we're striving for perfectionism. And so, if you do outsource, like you were saying, I think it was when you were talking about outsourcing editing or blogging, those are things that are really personal. Okay, so those are our personal stamps of our identity, and it's the way we use language, it's our voice, it's our eyes, all of those things. And so if we hand that over to somebody else, we can't keep tabs on it. So there's perfectionism there. but nothing is perfect. And actually the best thing is to just keep doing, and you get better and better just by doing that consistency. So once you do release that perfectionism, because you never reach it, it's a myth, and that's why it can be quite torturous. If you're a perfectionist, often we go into lack because it never quite works out how we thought it was going to go. So offload it, give it to people that want to do that stuff. We tell them how it needs to be, and then you can really just get involved with what it is that sparks the joy for you.
Absolutely, definitely. I think as well, what you were mentioning about perfectionism there is I'm definitely one of those people. Everything has to be just so, especially in business. And if it isn't, it doesn't go anywhere until it is just so. But I think for me, I often find that I'll strive for something, and then when I feel like I'm getting to that something, the goalpost will move even higher, or it'll move differently, or it'll change in some way, and I'm back to trying to reach that perfectionism again. It's not always a case of once you're there, you've reached it. It can often just change again, can't it?
It's constantly moving, because there isn't what is perfect. It's ever changing, because we're ever changing, we're growing. You're absolutely right. I think perfectionism is a biggie, actually, with the whole mindset and imposter syndrome as well. It's all connected,
interlinked.
Completely.
So Sarah, we've spoken about kind of a couple of key topics throughout today's conversation. Have you got some top tips for photographers in general, be that people starting out or people that are already established?
Oh my gosh, that feels like such a biggie, and actually that might make me feel like imposter syndrome. No, I think follow what really fulfills you. And so for me, it's working with women. Like I said earlier, I don't want to do it all. But then also I love taking photos of other things, but that's my hobby and that's what I do for myself. But I've found what it is that really gets me motivated and wants me to pick up the camera from a professional perspective. I think stand tall. We're all unique, and there is certainly enough space in this world for everybody to shine bright in whatever way that they work as a photographer. I think let's get away from competition. It doesn't help anybody. So break away from being competitive and just stay in your lane, because you are the best at what you do because of who you are.
I love that. Love those. That's perfect. If you could start your career all over again, Sarah, is there anything you'd change? Anything you'd do differently?
I did think about, yes. So this is a good question. I think I would stand taller. I think I would just stand taller. I think I would take up a little bit more space. And I think I would just I don't think I would waste time worrying about what people were maybe saying, not necessarily about my work, but I think I just would get rid of the sort of the noise, and I would just stay in my lane. I think it's a really interesting question, actually. I think I would collaborate a lot more. And I would ask for help. It's all of those things. I'm really grateful that I was able to discover that I could do my photography as a business. And I think actually when I found that out, I would have asked for more help sooner. And just stay creative by absorbing culture and going to a lot of exhibitions and talking to people about their art and their craft and how their journeys, how have they got to where they've got to, because we can learn from everybody. And again, like I said earlier, there's enough space for all of us, and we all do things in a unique way so the processes are there, but we can all interpret them in very different ways. Absolutely. And so we all learn from each other with that. And I think that's all it is. I would just be I'd just stand taller. I'd just take up more space.
Love that. Absolutely love that. So if our listeners would like to get in touch with you, chat with you, learn more from you, how can they get in touch?
Well, I've got a website. So that is my name. So it's www.sarahwinterflood.com. And from there, you can discover my photography and also my coaching. I am on social channels, but I'm not completely consistent. Yeah, so I've got Instagram and I am on Facebook and I'm testing out LinkedIn. So people can find me on there. Yeah, LinkedIn is not right. It's not my most comfortable place, but I'm on the social channels. So.
I think that's the same for everybody. LinkedIn is it's a place we're all kind of starting to test out, isn't it? Starting to try and learn about and get used to. And I think a lot of photographers and business owners are feeling that at the moment as well. So amazing.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really, really appreciate it. I've learned tons. So I know that our listeners definitely will have done, but you're really inspiring. So thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today.
Oh, Sally, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm extremely grateful for it. And I've had a blast.
Good.
I do like a chat. And and if something has resonated with somebody and they would love to get in touch, I'm very open to that. That's wonderful. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. And that's my absolute pleasure. So thank you again. And hopefully we'll catch you soon.
Yeah, wonderful.
All right, Sarah. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, that's everything from me today. Thank you so much again to Sarah for coming and joining us on the show and sharing all of her knowledge and top tips. If you'd like to see more, you can head to www.studioninja.co/episode 57. As always, please don't forget to rate us on the podcast platform that you're listening on. A little bit of love goes a very long way. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NinjaCast, brought to you by Studio Ninja. Beautifully designed and super easy to use, Studio Ninja will help you manage your leads, clients, shoots, invoices, contracts, workflows, and so much more. To learn more or start your 30-day free trial, go to www.studioninja.co.